Welcome to a special first snow of the year edition of Fragments of Silicon.
All right, welcome to our post-Thanksgiving episode of Fragments of Silicon. And by post-Thanksgiving, I mean it's about a week later. So, joining me, as always, is the regular crew. And let's get to the news. Let's find out how everyone's Thanksgiving went. Starting with you, Twilight. You start us off this week.
All right. Well, my Thanksgiving was pleasant. My cousin who lives in Seattle, he came in to visit for about, well, it was supposed to be in 3 days, but his flight back got delayed, and so he left the day after. He was supposed to leave on, yeah, he was supposed to leave on Saturday, and he had to leave on Sunday. But the visit was pleasant, as always. Well, fun, and yeah, it was kind of different. He don't know when the last time he visited on Thanksgiving was, honestly. But anyway, besides that, work has been busy, and in terms of games, didn't really play much this during the Thanksgiving time off. So that's about it for me.
All right, Galix.
We had it pretty low key. The only person who was planning to come up was my uncle and my sister, and my uncle couldn't come because he doesn't like to travel that much, and so stuff happens sometimes. Honestly, I can barely even remember Thanksgiving at this point because we were supposed to have significant snow on Monday, but then we kind of didn't, and work was closed. And then we did have significant snow yesterday, and work was closed again. So today was fun, trying to do like the whole first half of the week work in one day. But we did get it done, so that was good. So yeah, it was pretty low key. I got a little bit of pre-Christmas shopping done, so that was good.
Did you have to shovel your driveway?
Not the whole driveway, thankfully, but I did have to rake the roof off and shovel off all the steps and stuff. So my arm is a little bit ouchy right now.
Yes, it would be. That brings back memories.
Mm-hmm.
Like painful memories. Right. Anyway, anything else from your camp?
Not much. I've mostly been playing Pokemon Sword because that's the version I'm choosing to play, and it's fun to play. And I've only beaten the 3 gyms because I'm really slow at Pokemon games, and the wild area is fun, but that's actually pretty good progress for me, I think.
Yeah. Duly noted. All right. Petty Fan, you're up.
As far as Thanksgiving, we didn't really do much because my parents had to work that night, so we just kind of had our Thanksgiving dinner on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as far as notable stuff that happened, we finally upgraded our phones. We now have the Samsung Note 10 Plus. So that's been interesting remembering what all my passwords were, because I haven't had to do this for 2 years. And
Right.
then, as far as gaming goes, I did subscribe to the Xbox Game Pass thing on Windows, and Halo finally unlocked, so once I get the settings dialed in for that may be showing up more and more.
Duly noted.
And then I guess overall the break was nice until Monday. I got a bill from the hospital for almost $400 for my physical therapy.
Mm.
So I need to see if that's just a filing error on their part or if my insurance is flat out isn't covering all of it, which would run to about $4,000 all total.
I'm like, it might be a copay thing. Might want to check on that. You know, if they're only covering like 80% and you
No,
have to
the
cover.
bill said they didn't cover any.
Ooh, yeah,
Mm.
that's a thing you need to find out about.
Yeah, because if I would have known I needed to, come up for the money or physical therapy myself, I wouldn't have done it.
Obviously, you know,
Yeah.
there's an assumption here that your insurance would have covered it, or
Yeah, well, my doctor told me point blank that Medicaid will cover at least some physical therapy visits, and then I should only have to pay $15 per visit after that, but I'm kind of screwed unless this is just a error on either my insurance part or the hospital, so that's gonna be fun to get resolved.
adulting.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but that's it for me.
All right, it's my go.
Yep.
Let's see. My Thanksgiving was spent a good portion of it dealing with a new laptop. If you recall previous weeks, I had mentioned my laptop was developing, it was splitting to the point where any sort of movement to the screen and the screen was applying pressure to the sides, and the left side was split wide open to the point where it made the power charger loose.
Fun.
There were points where the laptop wasn't charging, or
Was it
wasn't
like a battery
recognizing the plug.
expanding issue or just shit plastic?
Shit build quality.
Ah.
It was a fucking Lenovo.
Mm,
It's a thing that I had to buy at that particular moment in time due to certain circumstances, let's say.
yeah.
But anyway, it still works actually, and with some adjustment, it will still charge. It's just, it's not a thing I want to be using anymore because, I almost lost it about a week ago. So I am working from a new laptop now. It's an HP Pavilion. It's a little bit better than the previous one, the previous computer, but it's definitely a lot sturdier. Which is, it's just if you've ever dealt with buying a new computer, it's like the easy part is getting it. Yeah, assuming you're not building one. That's a whole other can of worms. I never got into the whole DIY computer thing, but more to the point, I spent about 2 days getting the laptop back to where I needed it to be.
Sounds
all
about
the
right.
little, it's like, download the Steam library, download all of the other applications I need. It's like making sure everything is in night mode.
You mean you don't like your eyes bleeding?
No, I don't. Like, it's like point of order is that takes time, and the new laptop arrived the day before Thanksgiving. So a lot of time was wrapped up in that. Let's see, other things that have been occurring. Right. I guess I'm pleased to.
And it wasn't for your mom.
Jeez. Anyway, I guess it can be mentioned that Mac is returned, sort of, like in the sense that his, revamped show, like, I hesitate to call this because even he's kind of iffy on what what the new MSP is going to be. But it broadcasted last night, so it exists. Like, I suppose that's never the. That's just one issue with the. It's a question of how long is the show going to last. I'm not going to lie. Some of Max Ventures are a lot more short term than they should be. So we'll see how long that lasts. Like, but and apparently, the new MSP Redux is him and Keith, and Keith's gone acoustic, so that was interesting. Yeah. Well, it's like after years of his electric guitar theme, it's different.
Indeed.
Anyway, let's see. Yeah, I think that's about it in terms of news. So, merrily, we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week is Adrien Quay-Thevenon of Bebop Games.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing fine, doing fine. How are you doing today?
Yeah, very good. Start to snow here in Montreal. I live in Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
Was it big snow?
No, just like 10 centimeter still.
I'm like, for those who don't know metric, that's like what, 3.5,
oh, yes,
4 inches.
sorry.
Yeah. So it's fine. You're well within your right to use metric.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm French.
Right. Anyway, so how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the games, behind the studio and whatnot, and I like to do that by asking you, what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Well, I used to play a lot with my brother when I was young. So we had the first computer. I was really young, like 8, and it was the start of internet also. So it was really a good time to discover plenty of games with emulators, on PC. So I don't had a lot of consoles, but some of them. But mostly I played on PC, so a lot of multiplayer game, online games. And now, yeah, well, I when I went to university, I went to learn how to program, to be able to create video games. So because I wanted to be a game designer.
And like, what year was this?
It was 10 years ago.
Oh.
So now, yeah, I've been working for 8 years about.
And where did you first start in the video games industry?
Well, a little bit in France, but mostly here in Montreal, Canada, in a small indie studio called Spearhead Games. And we work on a few games like Tiny Brains on consoles. And the last one was Stories, The Path of Destinies. Maybe you know this one.
Not familiar with that one, but I know Spearhead. They're the ones who did the Banner Saga, right?
No.
I might be thinking of someone else.
Yeah, no, it's not this one.
Yeah, like.
Anyway, yeah, it was. So yeah, I did a few other company, but mostly I always work on like small company with small teams.
So
and,
no working at the big AAA publishers.
Nah, none of that. I think it's more fun to work in a small companies because I like to do multiple things. So it would not be possible in a big studio.
Right.
And so yeah, and I decided 3 years ago to create my own game, which is
Right.
Playcraft, which is not a game.
Right. I suppose some background context is going to be needed for this because Playcraft is kind of a unique thing in that. So it's less a game and more a game maker.
Yeah, it's a game maker. It's a platform to create games, but it's really accessible to any players. Like no knowledge of programming required. You can just create with a simple interface.
And oh, okay.
No, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so the fun part is that you can create with your friends online. You can create multiple people at the same time. With your character, you see the action of the other player, and you can switch between the creation mode and the play mode instantly. So you can improve your game really fast.
Right. And I suppose my first question is, what was the impetus to creating Playcraft? Why make this game platform in the first place?
Because I really like multiplayer games, and I wanted to make it easier for any game designer to create online games, and to make it even accessible to anyone. So there is a lot of teenagers who play the game, and it's a good way for them to discover game creation. And for me, it will allow also me to prototype games, multiplayer games, and it would not have been possible without the speed, because it's really fast to prototype in Playcraft.
And let me see. I'm guessing that whole accessibility angle is why it's a free-to-play title.
Yeah, it's part of that also because I don't have a marketing budget, so it's my first game too. So it's really difficult in the market today. So free to play makes sense for a platform like that because people create stuff and they share their creation, and so everyone can profit of all the creation, and the more people, the better.
Right. Oh, I say free to play, but there is a payable version of this called the Pro Pack. What is in the Pro Pack? Yeah. What is the Pro Pack, and does it give you more items? Does it give you unique stuff?
So the Pro Pack is totally optional. It does unlock you some extra options in terms of what you can create. For example, with a Pro Pack, you can create a bigger terrain, for example. But you can still create a terrain, and there is pretty much no limit in terms of dimension. And you also have cool skins for your character and like effects, cosmetic effects you can unlock with the Pro Pack. So, yeah, it's optional.
Okay. And now you say the focus here is to make online multiplayer games. Now,
yeah, the main focus, but it's not mandatory. Some players create more solo experience too.
Right, but more to the point, like, is there a focus on a specific type of multiplayer game, like a deathmatch type of thing, or it's like a first-person shooter, third-person shooter, or just
Well,
how limitless is this toolbox?
well, for now I focus on like adventure game, platform game, puzzle game. Well, all kind of adventure game we can play in third person or first person. There's you can create like a shooter. There is there is limitation on what you can create for now. But you can create a lot of things: horror game, platformer, puzzle, adventure. You can set, is it a team-based game or free for all? So is it deathmatch, or you can also say it's game you have to collect a certain number of items. You have to go somewhere to finish the game, stuff like that. So yeah, it's more like action adventure type of games for now, and then I'm gonna expand it to more type of games, like be able to move the camera to do, for example, hack and slash.
Okay. And is the actual building multiplayer? Like, can say 2-4 people get together and create a project in collaboration?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the fun part. Absolutely, it's full multiplayer, especially the creation mode.
Oh, that's good to hear. And how many players can play a game? Like, say you have a death match. Is it, how many people could do that?
There is no hard limitation, but I think I didn't really I wasn't able to test it like with too many people for now, but I did test it, but it was in a setup with more of LAN setup, and we were like 25 people. But it is gonna depend on multiple factors, like the hardware and the internet also. But I guess for now it's like 20 people, something like that. So.
Right, and I suppose that also gets into the question of what sort of specifications are you aiming Playcraft for, in terms of hardware?
Well, it's based on Unreal Engine, so you need to have decent hardware, I would say. Yep.
It's not too surprising. It's and let me see here. And how many people are working on this project currently?
Well, it's been mostly me, and I have some interns who help me too, but it's mostly a solo project actually. And what I do is I buy the graphics on the Unreal Marketplace, and I integrate and do all the programming and user interface, etc. So yeah, I don't do the graphics except the interface, and I do all the programming.
Like, that's that's not too surprising given the scale and scope of this game. Like,
oh yeah,
it's like given what I've seen and what I've played of the game, it's definitely something that if like that would require the purchasing of assets and so on and so forth. Because this would be too much for one person, I imagine.
Of course, it would be impossible. And the cool thing is, so there is multiple item packs in the game. A player can use like a medieval pack, sci-fi pack. So many type of environments for the player to use. So it's cool.
Now, when you say you do the programming, what does that exactly entail? Given that you're dealing with a pre-made engine, pre-made assets, and all that.
Well, of course, I use Unreal Engine. So,
Right.
as every game developer. So yeah, the engine is pretty powerful, really amazing. So I mean, of course, it wouldn't be possible without the engine.
Right.
Unreal Engine is really amazing, especially to create multiplayer games. Yeah.
Now, is the engine like Unity or Unreal, or is it
Unreal.
It's Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
That would explain a few things.
What? Look
Well,
like
I mean,
Fortnite?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah. This game was reminding me of Fortnite, like in a tangential sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not saying it's using Fortnite assets or anything. It's just, Unreal Engine Fortnite.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same engine, so the lighting is, can be
Right.
similar, so stuff like that. Yeah.
And how arduous was it putting this whole project together?
Well, I've been working full time for now 3 years. So, yep. And it's not finished. But now it's early access.
Right. And
yeah,
if I'm recalling, it came out in early access last month.
Yeah.
Like
end of October.
I suppose the question in that regard is, what's been the reaction from the user base so far? And also, what wonders have they created in Playcraft so far?
So the reaction is good. I mean, I have a good review on Steam. 85%. Of course, there is always some people complaining. But yeah, it's pretty good for early access, I think, and for the creation of the player, there is some cool stuff like there is a lot of players who try to make like a Skyrim games. So, but it's really impressive, like in terms of visuals and the scale of like the world they create. It can be really impressive. There is some platformer, of course, like I don't know, Mario style, would say.
Mm-hmm.
And also some scary game like horror game, Silent Hill. There is some Japanese playing the game, and they really like horror game. They like to create horror games. It's funny.
Like what kind of horror games are we talking about? Like going through a haunted house?
Yeah. You are in the house. It's really dark, and maybe you have a lantern, and you have some jump scares. Stuff like that. With the music, you can set up music or effects. You can create simple animation. You can put characters. You can create dialogues with the characters. So you can create like a story kind of game also. Yeah. And as far as the reception, it's still like, I mean, there is, it's still a small reach. Like there is not that much player, even though there is a strong and stable user base. It's not big, even for free to play. It's really hard.
Well, it did only come out a month ago. There's that, and it's the holiday season, so and along those lines, what does your early access roadmap look like? How much time is it going to spend in early access? what sorts of content do you still have to add? How much polishing? All that sort of stuff.
Well, it's flexible. There's no hard, but I would say about 1 year of early access. It can be more or less. And so there is quite a few improvements, and one of them is the ability to add your own custom assets into the game. And so this will allow players to import, anything they want into the game, which can be can cause a lot of trouble, but can be funny. Well, it's really important actually, and the ability to create kind of mods, or well, we'll see about that, but if it's possible, it would be nice to have. And a lot of improvements overall, like the AI, be able to use a gun. I'm working on that right now.
Mm-hmm. And let me see. I suppose, will this game have Steam Workshop support then?
Well, I use something else, which is mod.io. It's kind of Steam Workshop, but it's the good thing is it's multi-platform, so it's not tied to Steam and to PC. If I want to port the game later, it will be useful.
I'm guessing not just in terms of, say, a console release, but if this game appeared on, say, itch.io or GOG or the Epic Game Store, it would be handy in that way as well.
Yeah, sorry, just 1 minute.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened there.
Okay, it's okay. So sorry, what did you say?
I guess having the mod system being platform agnostic will be helpful, not just in terms of, say, console porting, but having other versions of Playcraft on other storefronts.
Well, I don't think it's gonna happen on PC now. It's really convenient to use Steam for a developer.
Right. Yeah. I'm just saying this is just a future speculation. Anyway, now in terms of computer builds, is this game Windows only, or is it available on the Mac or Linux?
No, it's Windows only.
Not a surprise there. And I'm guessing there are no plans to support the other computer formats either.
Not for now, no.
Yeah. Right.
I have to reduce the constraints. I'm just one person.
Right. It's like, you add on versions that adds to the workload, that adds to the stress, that's to everything.
Yeah, it's too much for one person.
And when the game gets out of early access, I'm assuming that, when it gets to a 1.0 state, that's not the end of it. You will still support the game with content after that?
Yes, the goal is to develop it for many years, even after release. Because basically there is limitless potential. So it's really a cool project to I could it's a game to create games, so infinite potential.
Right. And let me see. I think I'm just about through my questions, but I'll see if my colleagues here have any of their own to add to the conversation.
How do you, play somebody else's game they've made? Is it just, a link they can go to, or...?
Yeah, it's really easy. When you create a game, you can save it in local, and then you can upload it on the backend, which is mod.io, and then everyone can see your game directly into the game. There is like you can browse like popular games, new games, top games, etc. And then you subscribe to the game, and you can play it. And then you can also update your creation. Yeah, it's really easy.
And is there any way to like play the game outside of Playcraft, or do you need to have Playcraft installed to play any
No.
games made in it?
No, it's through Playcraft. It's not possible otherwise.
I think that's it for my questions.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Anyone else?
Sorry, I had my mic muted, but I am also set with questions.
Okay.
I'm good as well.
And he asked the biggest thing I was curious about is about publishing.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Publisher, you mean? Finding a publisher?
Oh no, I meant about the ability to like
publish your game. Okay.
publish/export the games that you make so that other people can use them. But if it's just through the program.
Yeah, it's through the program because it's a multiplayer game, and so in the program you can easily find players to play with, and yeah.
Any other questions?
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think so.
Might have been answered.
All right then. Well, I think that'll about do it for us here. Adrien, I'd like to thank you for joining us this week and taking time out of your program for.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Anyway, the game is Playcraft. You can download it for free on the Steam storefront. It is currently in early access. It does have a pro pack that costs $19.99 if you wish some extra tools for your creation to be. Anyway, Petty Fan, play us to the next segment. All right, welcome to the topic of discussion. And as promised, we have our Pokemon episode, specifically Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield. And over to the staff on this one, since it's a Pokemon topic. Now, not exactly my depth.
Well, I think I'm the only one here who's actually played it, but I'm curious as to what you other guys think from what you've heard and seen, possibly.
Well, I mean, we certainly heard things about Pokemon Sword and Shield. That's
you mean the borderline riots?
Well, the borderline online riots.
Yeah.
Not surprising, it turns out the loud minority was actually the loud minority because, well, this is the best-selling Switch title already, fastest-selling Pokemon title in a long while. It's racking up all sorts of sales accolades. So whatever problems the hardcore Pokemon base have with Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, not surprisingly, they're immaterial to the wider audience.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
So there are issues. A lot of them mostly involve the fact that it's not improved as much as it should be, and they did cut back in a few areas that it feels like they didn't need to, but there's still rumors going around about how stuff might have gone bad on the back end that may or may not explain some of that, depending on what turns out to be true. So I'm not going to be too judgmental about that, but it's still a perfectly serviceable Pokemon game. I do think they kind of front load a lot of the cool stuff. Some of the later towns that I've barely gotten to are less impressive, though they are kind of structured as like there's a big town in the middle and then smaller things on the sides, but Some of the later smaller towns are quite small. I think the characters are fun, and although having the league cards be one of the main ways you get character for the gym leaders is a little bit lazy, at least you get the character for them, which in a lot of games there haven't been gym leader character much at all, so that's good. I do also find the whole, like, okay, so in this region, like, it's actually like a pro sport rather than just kind of an amateur thing, is a pretty interesting take on the experience. So,
I mean, given how ubiquitous Pokemon is in Pokemon World, you would think that this would be much more the case.
So here's what it
Indeed.
feels like to me. It feels like to me most people have like one or two Pokemon for like safekeeping, protection, companionship, whatever. People who actually like go out and actively, competitively train are much rarer. And the player characters in this game are people who are actually trying to be professionals. And spoilers, while it's not necessarily you, there are a couple of characters who are on the same thing as you that end up being gym leaders by post game. So
Fun.
Yeah.
So I think that that's sort of an interesting difference from how it has kind of been. Because I think in a lot of the other things, it's kind of basically implied that, like, mostly a kid thing.
Like, isn't it like when you turn 10, you can either go to, like, trade school type thing, or you can go on a Pokemon journey or something like that?
It's a little unclear, but probably something like that, yeah.
That's how it always seemed.
All right. I suppose we should address the controversies of Pokemon.
Oh, and also, sorry, quickly before that, well, related to the controversies, at the very minimum, most of the new monsters they put in are really cool. I think so, anyway.
But it doesn't have my favorite obscure Pokemon. Insert name here.
No. Thankfully, no. Well, I'm like, here's the thing. That's apparently super not allowed in Japanese games. Like, that's actually a big reason why Smash Brothers had a lot of problems with the Sero ratings board of Japan.
Because some of the characters wore dresses and the dynamic camera let you sometimes get under them.
Yes. You didn't actually see anything, but just even the implication was enough.
That's also why Japanese phones have non-turn-offable shutter click noises for their cameras.
Right. And anyway, but, you know, in case you've been living under a rock or, you know, been thankfully able to avoid the shitstorm of anger from people who just do not understand things. There's no other way to say it. You know, it's like the big issues around Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield is that what they call the national dex, or the bestiary of Pokemon, has been halved. So instead of 896, you know, it's up to about 900, let's say.
It's 890 total.
Yeah, there we go. You know, instead of 890, they've reduced that to about 400 in Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield.
Which is worth noting, there have never, like, it's been a long time since all of the Pokemon have actually been completely catchable in one game. It's just that in this game, they're not transferable either.
Right. So, you know, if you have a certain Pokemon from a previous generation that isn't in the Sword or Shield decks, it's not transferable. You can't play it in that game. And it's understandable why people would be upset about that, but it's also the reason why the national decks had to be halved. And going forward, it's it's never you're never going to have the full dex in a mainline Pokemon game. You know,
At minimum,
maybe
that is the current company line.
Yes. And that's because there's not enough hours in the day or people on the fucking planet with the skills to create all of that.
A lot of the models are reused more or less, so there's some debate about how accurate some of that. But anyway, it keeps the game simpler, and another thing that people are annoyed about is that they removed the gimmicks of the previous two generations of Mega Evolutions and Z moves in favor of the evolution for this generation, which is Dynamax/Gigantamax, which frankly doesn't do much. Except give a Pokemon more impressive moves and a lot more hit points for 3 turns. But yeah, the Mega Evolution was a good idea when it was used right, but it was only used right about half the time because it was a good way to get old Pokemon to be more viable in battle. But then they made Mega Rayquaza and Mega Mewtwo. And that was not needed at all. And Mega Garchomp, and Mega Salamence, and Mega Metagross.
Oh, Lord.
Things with a base stat total of 600 or higher, categorically I would say, did not need Megas.
Some of the most powerful Pokemon in the series.
Right. Whereas Mega Beedrill was a cool idea. Like, to make it viable, just make it like an absolute glass cannon, or I don't know, even give us some of the starters Megas wasn't that bad of an idea, although I also don't think Charizard needed 2.
Yeah.
Or the nail.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think I think that like removing things and maybe bringing them back at some later point is not as big of an issue as I think a lot of people are making it, but a lot of people are particularly attached to some of their favorite Pokemon, and if those Pokemon, like I would have been probably more upset if Togepi hadn't been in this game, but
there's no Scyther, 0 out of 10.
There is in fact no Scyther. And some people, I guess, play Pokemon where they try to assemble the same team in every game, and you can't necessarily do that in this one, but for people who like approach each region as a different thing, it's probably not going to be too. There's certainly plenty of variety. I've actually found myself, especially because you get access to the wild area pretty early, and even though you can't catch everything right away, you can't catch things that are above when you first get there level 20, and then it scales by 5 levels for every gym. But even there's still a lot of Pokemon you can get, and especially if you do the max raid battles, which is this game's particular way of breaking the difficulty curve over its knee by giving you absurd amounts of money. And again, I'm at like the 4th gym, and I have I think I have 100 rare candies now.
Jesus.
Like I haven't, but so yeah, it's not super like complex, or it's not. It's really easy to do that, and it's fun too. So, but you can get swamped for choice about okay, what do I want to actually use and level up, and like when I played Black and White, I did actually give a fair shake to literally every Pokemon because it was only like 150 new Pokemon, and most of those and then a chunk of those were legendaries that you don't get until the very end. Whereas in this game, where I am in the game, I think I've caught more than 200 different Pokemon, and I don't know what I mean. So obviously some of those are evolved forms, but it's hard to choose which ones to use. So.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly, there's no way I can raise all of them. And not only because I'm not a college student who has long bus rides anymore.
And we haven't even addressed maybe not bigger, but the other big controversy of Pokemon Sword and Shield, and that's the graphics. You know, there was an expectation that the graphics of the mainline Pokemon Sword and Shield would look better than they do, but that's kind of not understanding that the actual developers of the game, they're not that big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they were working on another game for part of this. I personally do think they should be better. I mean, I've mostly played so far. I think this game I've exclusively played in handheld mode, and I think it looks absolutely fine in handheld/tabletop mode. It might not be super impressive hooked up to a TV. Both me and my friend that I've been playing alongside some found it a little bit jarring that none of the characters have voiced lines, even though they have pretty detailed video and mouth animations and stuff.
It's also speaking to where these developers come from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, you know.
No, yeah, it's not that I expected it. It's just it looks like they could actually do that now, and I do hope that by later this generation or next generation, they upscale a little bit better to the better graphics, and maybe I know they don't want to. They said they don't want to change the models too much, but like improve textures or something. I don't know what it would take to make it look better. Because it could. That's I guess what I'm getting. It could look better, but I do think it looks fine, and it does. I think look better than the last gen on the 3DS did.
Well, I mean, it had better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like even.
Well, people are saying it doesn't, and I think that they're wrong. Frankly,
No, they're like just on an objective level, the game's going to look better because it's in a higher resolution. That's
right.
just facts, and how resolutions work. But yeah, it's like. The people who have been braying and yelling about this game, have made the Pokemon community one of the most toxic on the internet. And that's never a thing you want to be.
I was like, thanks, guys, as a Sonic fan.
I'm like, yeah, there are 3 things that will get you yelled at on the internet for about 3 days. The Epic Games Store, Pokemon, and Sonic. This is a tweet I read the other day. They're not wrong.
No,
yeah,
they're
I saw
not.
that.
I'm like,
But I can have a dragon that's an apple pie, so your opinion is invalid.
I mean, and of course, there's the, how do I put this, even more unsavory points of contention, let's say, but these do not need to be addressed, and these people can go fuck off and die.
Sounds about right.
It's like, because it has to do with trainers and sexism and racism. A certain water trainer comes to mind.
Oh, fun.
That, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Being based on England, this region continues the trend of the last couple by having a rather more diverse cast than was found before Gen 5.
And of course that angers certain people. Once again, these people are not people who need to be listened to ever. And that's about all I'll say in that direction.
Something, shave your neck beards.
Maybe more than that, but we'll keep it there.
Yeah.
Right. So, anything else from the world of Pokemon Sword and Shield?
Honestly, it's still Pokemon. That's kind of the best thing about it you can say, and also kind of the worst thing about it you can say, because this is a franchise that has not evolved an awful lot. But,
Well, right. It's got a brand identity to maintain.
Yeah, they either alienate new fans or piss off old fans. There is no middle ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we should also talk about the new Pokemon series in brief. I say in brief because it's only had about 3 episodes aired.
Something like that. Someone gave Team
Yeah.
Rocket strong things again.
Well, kind of. Here's the thing, Team Rocket.
I mean, temporarily.
Well, yeah. Let me explain the gimmick. Because this season, Team Rocket's shtick is gachapon.
Fun.
Yeah, it's like their battle Pokemon comes in at random via a Pokemon machine or something like that. It's basically it's gacha. So, which is, if nothing else, a unique gimmick. Maybe a bit on the nose, but still, points for inventiveness. But the big thing about it's like this entry doesn't have an official English name yet, but its Japanese name is just Pocket Monsters.
Because they're not doing just. I mean, they are going to be doing Sword and Shield and going to Galar and stuff, but they're also doing other stuff. It's not going to be with the girl of this region or any of the new sidekick character is another kid who's also an original character.
Yeah. Who's also
got into Pokemon around Go because that's what they're called.
Yeah, his name is actually Go. And
which is a perfectly legitimate name in Japanese, but it's also a little on the nose.
No, it's exactly on the nose. Like that's completely fucking intentional. But
not that the series has ever been particularly subtle.
No, it's Pokemon. Like I'm sure Pokemon can do subtle, but it's a kids show that's aimed at even in Japan, kids. I know demographics are a bit wider in Japan, but this is aiming for 7 to 10, even in Japan.
If that.
Yeah.
Certainly to be appealing to them, if not only them, yes.
Right. It's like, the people who are watching Pokemon and the people who are watching, say, One Piece are going to be fairly different. I know there's going to be some overlap.
I think One Piece is also aims about that low. But yeah, I don't know, maybe not.
Well, here's the thing. One Piece's audience is kind of, because One Piece is ran for so long, its audience got older. Yeah. But
and Pokemon has both aspects. It has people who got older, and it has people who are.
I guess you could say One Piece, or even like Naruto. All of them did that, but that's neither here nor there. The new Pokemon series, is supposed to be a multi-region affair. For example, the opening episodes are huge homages to the original season, the Indigo League season, as it's now called. And that means it's starting in the Kanto region, because we can never get away from the fucking Kanto region.
I mean, the Kanto region is literally the Kanto region of Japan, which is where something like half the population of Japan lives.
Yes, I know. Just saying.
Also, it is where Ash is from.
I'm just saying, I'm not even a fan of Pokemon, and I'm sick of Gen 1.
I mean, at least they're not pulling fucking Green Hill Zone out of the mothballs for the 80th time.
I'm
not exactly thrilled that Leon's Leon's ace is a Charizard, and therefore Charizard gets its third special Gigantic form, although there is a special kind of irony in the fact that Gigantamax Charizard is probably actually worse than just regular Charizard with Dynamax, because to get a Gigantamax, which is the one that doesn't only get big but change form, you have to either be given it as a gift that it can do that, or you have to catch it as a Gigantamax thing in a max raid. But yeah, the way that it works is that all of your moves, based on what type they are, or if they're a status move, they get turned into the same move for that type. So the normal fire type max move makes it Sunny, which increases the power of fire, decreases the power of water. Charizard's special one, which replaces that, adds the fire spin effect of the opponent takes damage for 3 to 5 turns, which I'm sure Charizard would prefer it to be Sunny.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I don't even think Gigantamax Charizard looks bad. It's just it does not need it already got 2 different megas. Come on.
Charizard being overpushed? Perish the thought.
It's not even that good. I mean, it's not terrible, and I don't hate Charizard as a thing, but it's just incredibly overdone.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's not much else to say about the Pokemon series since it's only a few episodes in. Although, dear God, the let's I believe it's called Hoye on this is pretty incredible. Like,
So I'm guessing they kept the Sun and Moon crew then?
yeah,
The art style looks a little bit less exaggerated than it was for Sun and Moon, but they did stick with a style that is more suited to, dramatic action and stuff.
Yeah.
Because remember, the problem before Sun and Moon was that they had a very detailed style that was just also super stiff.
It was.
yeah. I'm like, I've heard a lot of praise for Sun and Moon. Haven't watched any of it because, well, it's this thing I watch.
I don't have time to watch a weekly anime that long. That's for people who are that much younger than me.
Who does?
Indeed.
Like, honestly, if I watch something like that, that's gonna be, I use that stuff as background filter while I'm working something. I mean, I'm not actually watching that season of Beyblade. I just need something in the background. Like the shit I actually want to watch, I'm gonna actually, watch.
Indeed.
Indeed, yeah.
Like, you joke, but it works well. I found. Anyway, so any final conversational thoughts on Pokemon? The Pokemon Sword, Pokemon Shield era currently?
It looks interesting. I might get it when I get a Switch. If I get a Switch.
I like what I've seen so far, and I hope to get a Switch in the near future so I can play it for myself, and as well as some other games are coming up on the system.
Careful, you might get given a bunch of mediocre Ratalaika games to review.
Well, I mean, I would rotate it a bit more if more people.
It's not that I have
Switch.
a problem with it. I'm just poking fun. Anyway, yeah, I really am enjoying it, and I think it is a worthy new next generation. But I am still a little bit on guard going forward to see, like, okay, so if things stay not being available, how long will it be until there's something they're available in again? Oh, and I do think this gen, you've also have great access to moves, because in addition to what has become the traditional 100 TMs, which can be reused as usual, there are also 100 technical records, which are like old vinyl records, which break after one use. And a lot of traditional TM moves, like the good ones, like Surf, Thunderbolt, Fire Blast, Ice Beams, those things are records. So it helps balance. So like you have to put in a little bit of effort to get those, because you can only use them once. They drop from max raids, and you can buy them in the wild area. So it's not actually like super hard, but particularly before you beat the game, that you don't have as many as you need. So I think that was a good idea, and it reduces the need of previous generations to, okay, well, it's the first games of the generation. All the Pokemon are going to have terrible move pools until they put all the move tutors back in the later games of this generation. Because that was definitely a thing.
Indeed.
All right then.
Oh, and the Britishness is really cute.
All right, then. So that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. The week ahead, coming up on Friday, December 6th, we do have a European interview. We will be having Gary Burchell of Fireblade Software on the program. We will be talking about a game called Abandoned Ship, which is it's about sailing, though not specifically a pirate game from what I've been seeing, which is interesting, as it's based in the Age of Sail, but you don't necessarily have to become a pirate. Just kind of what I associate with that kind of genre, subgenre. Blame that on Sid Meier's Pirates. Petty Fan, you should have a code for that. So be sure to have that downloaded by Friday, because it doesn't look like it's a small game. So. And coming up on Sunday, we will be having reviews of Stamp Boy, Rocket Wars for the Nintendo Switch version. Speaking of Ratalaika, I think that that might not be one, actually. I'm thinking about it now. Anyway, we got 10 Million, and Petty Fan will be handling Ritual Crown of Horns. Just clearing out the review queue before the end of the year. Anyway, so until Friday, I shall wish you good gaming.